Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. In this episode, we're going to be talking about something you really have to watch out for because it can sneak into the conversations, sneak into the long-term relationships, and you don't really notice this happening. Or maybe you don't even know to give it a name. And that is that hijackals, these relentlessly difficult people, have a tactic, a strategy, a trick to generalize, globalize, gloss over, and all this in an effort to quote unquote win in every situation. It's really important to see these for what they are, to see how they employ the tactic, and whether or not you can catch it before you join in. You want to be able to see clearly that this is what's happening and I can choose to participate or not. And hopefully it'll be a not. So one of the things that hijackals like to do and how it fits into generalizing and globalizing particularly is they like to infer an outside authority. You know, they will say things like, well, they say that this is the case, or many people have told me, or many people have asked me, or many people have commented on, or any sane person knows this. And you can see that these sweeping statements are intended to take over and dominate the conversation, but to ensure authority or infer authorities and infer that it is a reference and that they have done their homework or they are, quote unquote, in the know. And this is important to see because they're going to go in one of two directions to use this. Either they're going to start there, they're going to start with big, and everybody does, and people who are smart do, and if they were wise, or if you really loved me, or if you want the relationship to be successful, and then they will try to overwhelm you right from the start, or they will build up when you ask them a specific question, or you want to talk about a specific incident. They don't want to talk about it. So when they endeavor to answer you and you don't back off, then they tend to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Say, oh, you always are doing this to me. You never have taken my word for anything. Why do you always have to challenge everything that I say? And if that's sounding familiar, then this is going to be very useful to you to see how often this ploy, this trick, this strategy, this tactic is used, whether that hijackal, that relentlessly difficult person in search of power, status, and control, is a parent or a partner or an ex or a sibling or an adult child or someone at work. They are going to demonstrate this idea that they have the bigger picture. They have the big guns. They are going to be right. And I've seen it so many times with my clients that they will relate to me a conversation that is going on, often with a partner or parent, and they won't have noticed it particularly. They know something clicked in, they know something isn't quite right, but they didn't know quite what it was. And when we start to work with the idea, but there it goes, we were talking about this one thing, they don't like talking about it, they're not quote unquote winning. So now we're going to globalize it to everybody in the world, everybody in town, everybody who's smart, everybody with half a brain, and they're going to now endeavor to pummel you with large numbers who are in concurrence with their position. And we can see that frequently. None of it is necessarily true. Not at all. You know, someone can say, I'm asked all the time this question. Well, were they? Or did someone ask them one time? You don't know. And hijackals are great at the plausible lie. I've talked about that before. So when you think about putting these attributes together, you can imagine that when they are doing this generalization and globalization part, that they may not be telling the truth. They may just be grasping at things that they think are going to help them be right, or at least make you wrong, because that's where you have to be with a hijackal, isn't it? You have to be wrong. You have to lose. You have to be the lesser being. You have to be the one who doesn't know. You have to be the one whose fault everything is. And so when they start playing this game from specific to global all the time in order to get you, then we want to be very aware of that. Because if they do go in that order from you'd like to talk about something, they agree to talk about it, they see that you're going to talk about something they need to change, they don't want to talk about that, so they start to generalize and globalize, then at that moment, what they're doing is kind of playing a game, leading, and looking for the kill shot. Do you ever feel like that they just did that? They just got really close to the net and just smashed the ball at your feet? Or at your head, or at anywhere it would hurt. Now that's what they do, because their need to be right is so deep. And therefore, you have to be wrong. And this becomes so important to understand, because it can happen in a heartbeat. You can be having what you think is a perfectly rational conversation. You think we're going to be able to discuss this topic. We're going to legitimately be able to do the pros and cons. What could we do? Sit down like two healthy humans and say, this is a bit rocky. Maybe together we could do something about it. But the hijackal is not up for that. And if you've been listening to me for a while, you can know that in so many of these podcasts that I've done, I am showing you all the different ways that they think, that they operate, all the things they need. And remember, you can't change a hijackal. You didn't make them like that, and you can't make them different. And I know you really want to believe you can, because healthy humans honestly believe that if somebody feels loved and stable and taken care of, and you're there for them, and you show them that you're there for them, that they are going to finally relax. And they're going to love you back. They're going to be comfortable. They're going to be engaging. And the tension will be reduced, if not disappearing. They honestly, as a healthy human, believe that that's possible. But when you're with a hijackal, and you've probably learned that by now, it's not possible. It's not going in that direction. In fact, it very seldom goes in a good direction, except for those few minutes when the hijackal really wants something or really doesn't want something, such as you leaving. And then all of a sudden your stock goes way up. And now all of a sudden it's, we could do that. Or I'm willing to talk to you about that. But let's go back to the topic now. Beware of why they do this. And let's talk about the glossing over part, because that's really important to notice. We don't need to talk about it now. It's not that important. I don't think that there's any good in continuing the conversation. It doesn't really matter. I'm not getting what I want. I'd rather save it for another day. And so they just feel that in order to not rock their boat, they will tell you that you're making too much of something, and maybe even go so far as to suggest that you're kind of petty if you want to keep talking about this. Have you had that experience? Like, I don't know why you're always harping on that. It's so silly. Did something happen in your past that made that something that you just can't let go of? What's wrong with you? And then we get that gloss over, like, no, I'm not talking about that because it's an issue for you. And that's where we get the generalize, globalize, and gloss over. When people are generalizing, they're kind of saying always, these things happen always, or in most cases, or in almost every case. And when they're globalizing, they say it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone in this situation, or at least almost everyone. And then that glossing over bit is, I need to take the heat off. I need to bring the temperature down. So therefore, I'm going to say this isn't important and you're making mountains out of molehills. And that actually happens. It actually happens, right? And then there you are wondering if you really are making mountains out of molehills. Because as a healthier human, you will reflect on your behavior and say, what's my part in this? Is there something I could do differently? And that's great. That's a healthy thing to do. But you may have noticed that hijackals are not self-reflective. They are not going to stop and think, what was my part in that? Did I do that well? Was I considerate? Was there equality, reciprocity, and mutuality? They're not thinking that. They're thinking, how can I get what I want? And preferably as quickly as possible, with the least number of obstacles, and so that I end up doing whatever it is that I want, and I feel justified in doing it. And that's what hijackals want. That's how they want to behave. So why do they do it? Well, obviously, they want power over you. They want to be in the position of the person who calls the shots. And they want to feel that they're in control of the conversation. So why they do it? To take control of the conversation, to take control of the direction of the conversation, to veer the conversation away from anything they consider to be a fault or a flaw that they may have, which they don't believe they have. So therefore, they have to blame shift it back on you. And if they're not ready to blame shift it back on you just yet, then they're going to go to that expansive place. Well, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows that that's not the truth. And then you're in that question, is that so? Does everybody know? Do I not know? Am I being picky? Am I being difficult? And that's just where the hijackal wants you. That's exactly where the hijackal wants you, second guessing yourself. And if they can get you on your back foot like that, tipping a little bit, they will just take one step forward and make sure you fall. And you've had some experience with this if you're listening to this podcast. I know that you have, because that's the way it rolls. That's the way it happens. They need control. They need power over. And in order to get that, there has to be someone over whom the power is, who is being controlled. They also need control of situations. Hijackals believe at all times that they're the smartest person in the room because they're going to get what they want, and they don't think you know that they're going to get what they want by hook or by crook. And they think they can outsmart you, and they think that they can make you second guess yourself, and you will then back down, or you will apologize, or you will do what they want you to do or agree with him. And that's the hijackal way. There are healthier humans and there are hijackal humans. Healthier humans generally are raised on a planet where we believe in kindness and trust and honesty and respect and equality, compassion, civility, generally all good things. Yes, I know there's some people who don't, but generally we believe that. And people born in the hijackal human planet, they live by a different code. And hijackal humans are, give me all you've got and then give me a little more. So get as much as you can. And I don't care who I hurt. I just want what I want. So don't worry about that. And take everything you can and move on. If that's move on from the conversation, move out of the room at the time, or move out of the relationship or threaten to, that's what they'll do. So when you think, oh, I should reconsider my behavior, I should be much more concerned about what did I do and how did I do it, and was it kind, and is there truth in the words that they're throwing at me, and we'll stop and think about that. And then if we find a fault or even a plausible thought, fault, we may apologize for it. It doesn't happen with the hijackals, does it? If they believe that they can get you on the run, they will push their luck the whole way. And they will do it in these ways that I'm talking about. And they love to make sweeping statements with only plausible facts. They're really good at making up facts, quote unquote, right? They will make up a fact, and they can do it with a straight face, and they can do it in a nanosecond without missing a beat. And so it seems real to you, and yet it isn't. They're just good at it, really good at it. So when you start thinking about this ability to take this from making it about us or making it about them and being uncomfortable with that, so then they have to get the whole world on their side by generalizing and globalizing and making you feel like the odd person out, that everybody in the world feels this way, but silly you. If you really knew what was going on, you'd be over here. But if you were over here, by the way, then the hijacker will go over here and start arguing a different way. But these sweeping statements with plausible facts, that's where they catch healthier humans. Plausible lies. Well, it could have happened. On some planet, it might have happened. If just the right stars aligned, it could have happened. I better give them the benefit of the doubt. And they count on that. They absolutely count on that. So it's important for you to see this dynamic going from the specific to the general global, going from the this is really important to, well, it's not important to me, so I'm going to gloss it over. And I do not have to hang out with this. I do not have to listen to this. And it seems to me that you're trying to make me wrong or paint me in a corner. I don't have to listen to this because I can just say that nobody wants to hear what you have to say. In fact, I know all your friends tell me that all the time. You ever heard anything like that? You know it's not true. But when you are in anxiety, which is what they've produced in you, it makes you start to be unable to think really logically and rationally in the moment, and they're counting on that. They're counting on you getting back down and thinking about the plausibility of something, and then they'll get you on your back foot, and then they'll keep pushing. And they want to get you on the run like that, and then they want to run you away and say, I win, I was right. And that's what they're patting themselves on the back for. Is all this sounding familiar? Do you need help to clarify that? Because if you do at any time, I have a new client, full 1 hour session for only $97, and you can find it at beaclient.com. beaclient.com, and we can talk about all those things, and I can help you parse out what actually is happening and where the patterns are, because it's important to see the patterns. Once you've been entrenched in the relationship or enmeshed in the relationship for a while, you sometimes don't see the patterns anymore. You've been worn down, torn down, put down so much that it's like blah, 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 blah. And you don't see the patterns. You just feel the emotions, maybe the hopelessness of the exhaustion, or there they go again, or am I always at fault, or am I always wrong? Is everything my fault? Is this the way my life is going to go? And when you get into that place, you cannot see the patterns. And it's very helpful to have someone like me be able to ask you questions and help you see those patterns, because you don't want to be dismissed, to have your concerns glossed over. That's not why you brought up the concern. You brought it up so that it could be resolved, and hopefully resolved. And if you've been with a hijackal for long, you brought it up very carefully at a time that you had carefully calibrated, that there's no tension, nothing's going sideways, everybody seems in a good mood. Okay, I just like to talk about this one little thing. And you did your best, But because the hijackal felt there was some blame or shame in it, even if there wasn't, the hijackal heard it and felt it and made it up. They are then going to choose a strategy to hit you over the head with. And one of them that they may choose is generalizing, globalizing, glossing over. Who cares what you think? Who cares what you want? What makes you think you're so important? Why should things go your way? But if you ever ask the hijackal those same questions, oh my, it doesn't go well, to put it mildly, right? It simply doesn't go well. Why? Because, as I talk about all the time, in episode 115 of Save Your Sanity podcast, you will read and listen about the 3 must-haves of a healthy adult relationship. So why is what I'm talking about in this episode so important? It is because none of what globalization, generalization, glossing over is going to create or sustain equality. The number 1 must-have of a healthy adult relationship. The whole hijackal relationship is built on them insisting on inequality. So if you haven't listened to episode 115, I really invite you to do so. And if you haven't looked at my ebook, Creating Healthy Love, and what that all means and how to know if you have it, go to the website, emergingempowered.com, and click on the store. And if you want further, kind of in the middle between talking to me and getting some information or some product, then you can also look at membership. I have a community, the Emerging Empowered Community. You find it at joinintoday.com. And as a member, that offers you 3 group calls a month to ask me your questions directly. And we have a new offering just starting, and that is an 8-person cohort to look at 4 different areas, stages of life with a hijackal. And they're starting in the middle of October. And there are 2 of them starting on the 11th and 12th, or 12th and 13th, Wednesday and Thursday of October, 2022. And the first one cohort, just 8 people can get in. So if this sounds good to you, jump on it. Go to Emerging Empowered and make sure that you go and find out about the programs and courses. And it's called My Big Decision, Stay or Go. And that's a great way to get into a group call with 8 people who will be together for 12 weeks working on My Big Decision. And the second program that's running the next night is on executing my exit. I've made the decision to go, now what are all the things I need to know, and what do I need to do, and how do I need to do them so I can execute my exit. And those are wonderful programs. Each one of them 12 weeks long, you and a group moving through, figuring all that out. So there's a lot of things for you, and I know that was a lot of telling you what's up, but I hope it's really helpful, because when you get inundated with this generalization and globalization, you can just feel worn out. You feel like, oh, what's the point? I just can't get anywhere. I can't get any traction. I can't be heard. I don't feel seen. I don't feel important. I don't feel loved. And when all those pieces are there, we need to do something positive, because that's not okay. It is not okay for you to give away your life to somebody who is dedicated to taking it and running with it while discounting and dismissing you. It is just not okay on any level. And if you're getting value from the show, I hope that you will support it at patreon.com/saveyoursanity. patreon.com/saveyoursanity. So really something to think about. If you begin to notice this pattern that this episode is about happening repeatedly, and it probably does, in your relationship, then now you can begin seeing it. Take a couple of steps back, observe. I'm always telling you, Don't get into it with them. Observe them. So you see the traits, the patterns, the cycles, so that you really get conversant with it while you're not trying to be in it. Just observe for a while. And if you find that this is happening, they're going to the generalization and globalization to try and push you out of the conversation, notice that and say, actually, that's not the way I feel. And use the personal weather report to do that. Then if you're new here, welcome. And the personal weather report is a technique that I developed years ago to help with communication with every human and within yourself. And if you want to know more about it, I just put up a great page for you with my videos and things on it, so you could find it easily at personalweatherreport.com. So that'll be simple for you to remember. I hope you found this helpful. And until we meet again, take very good care of yourself, because you're precious and you matter. Talk soon.